A few housekeeping rules before we kick things off tonight. So you're aware, the webinar tonight is recorded. We will get a recording of the webinar distributed after tonight in the coming days, along with an information pack with some other resources. There is a Q&A section towards the bottom of your screen. Tonight's a really good opportunity to ask us any questions you might have in relation to Integrity Systems Company, NLIS LPA. So just drop your questions down there in the Q&A box, and we've got a few team members behind the scenes that are ready to go to answer those ones. If you submitted any questions during the registration process, we'll get those answered during the webinar. So we'll drop those into the webinar chat as we go along, so no need to worry about that. And that's about it. Welcome. We'll move on to the agenda now. So on the agenda for tonight's webinar, I'll give a little bit of an introduction. Probably should have introduced myself first and foremost. I'm Xander Bennett. I work in the communications team here at Integrity Systems Company, and I'll be facilitating tonight's webinar along with a host of other fantastic speakers from across ISC and New South Wales DPIRD. I'll give a bit of an introduction on ISC, a bit of a reminder on what we do, who we are, and then we'll go into an LPA update presented by Elizabeth Bradley, who's the Manager of Quality, Policy and Compliance here at ISC. She'll touch on some of those new EUDR requirements and sharing geolocation in the LPA. Also speak to the Animal Welfare Management Plan that you may or may not have heard of recently. Spend some time speaking to some of the improvements made to the Dairy QA program, and of course speak to harvested Rangeland Goats as well. And then we'll have John Asmus online, who's the Digital Product Manager here at IFC, who will be able to give us a bit of an update on everything new that's come to the eNVD system in the past 6 months or so. And there's some really exciting improvements that are happening there in relation to the pick search function and a few other bits and pieces that I know John will be happy to share with us. Moving on, there is a sheep and goat eID update that we'll leave to New South Wales DPI towards the end of the presentation. But after the eNVD update, we'll be hearing from Natasha Tere, who is, of course, the IC Operations Group Manager, and she'll be providing a bit of a project update on the NLIS Database Uplift Project. Following that, we'll hear from Kiri Broad from New South Wales DPI, who's the project manager for sheep and goat traceability, and we'll be running through a few bits and pieces there. But on to the bit of an introduction, bit of a reminder about who ISC is and what we do. ISC manage the two key programs that underpin market access for our Aussie red meat. So that's the LPA program, or Livestock Production Assurance, and the National Livestock Identification System, which is the traceability system that tracks livestock through the supply chain and is really quite vital in the event of an emergency disease outbreak. And then, as mentioned, we've got the LPA program there, which it's mainly responsible. It is the on-farm assurance program, covering off biosecurity, animal welfare, and food safety on farm. And linking those two programs together there is the National Vendor Declaration System, or the eNVD, which is that legal document that communicates the food safety and treatment status of each animal as it moves through the supply chain. And all of these programs work together to increase and maintain our market access, both domestically and internationally, and to make sure that our product as Australian red meat producers continues to meet customer expectations and that we're providing safe red meat to our customers, both domestically and internationally. That's about me for tonight. I'll hand it over to Elizabeth Bradley, the LPA update.
Hi everyone, Elizabeth here. Sorry for being on mute. I thought I clicked it off. I'm going to talk tonight about the Livestock Production Assurance Program updates and some key things and a little bit of background as to why we've made these changes. I'm going to run through the EUDR, or the EU Deforestation Regulation, and what that practically means for producers around sharing geolocations. I'll also talk about the new Animal Welfare Management Plan requirement, that's the new addition to the LPA program, and also around the harvested rangeland goat module that's added into LPA as well to support device-free movements of harvested rangeland goats. Starting off with EUDR, or the European Union's Deforestation Regulation, this one's a little bit of a strange regulation in that it sits outside of our traditional trade agreement we have with the European Union. So it actually applies to the importer that's located in the EU. So it's not a government-to-government trade thing. It actually is about putting products for sale in the marketplace in the EU and making sure they're coming from deforestation-free land. What this means for Australia and the rest of the countries in the world that trade into the European Union is they have to provide extra information if they want to import or export beef products and leather and hides into the EU from the 31st of December. So this extra requirement is around sharing a geolocation with the importer for the entire life history of cattle that make up that consignment of beef. So when they submit documentation for the import into the EU from the 31st of December, that documentation has to have the list of geolocations of every property, every animal in that consignment came or was raised on in their lifetime. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but we can do it because we have really great systems in NLIS and LPA. So this program sits separate to the UCAS requirements, which is administered by DAF. And that's because that program looks at the hormone freedom and the lifetime traceability. And because this is applied to the importer, the government program can't kind of interact with it. So effectively what it means is that producers, whether you're in the UCAS program and supply EU cattle already, or even if you're not, we would really love it if you could share your geolocation through the LPA program to enable these exports to continue. So it's a high value market for us. So it's $150 million approximately a year that we're making from the meat side of exports to the EU, and another 50 million from the leather. It's key to point out that leather and hides can come from any cattle. It's not just the EU cattle that are impacted by this. So everyone sharing their geolocation really helps maintain those exports into the EU from the end of the year. It's critically important too because there's cattle in feedlots now that sort of go into processing in October and then land in the EU when that date crosses over. So it's kind of timely that we get lots of people signing up. We've got about 20% of the EU producers now. So if you do fit into that category, highly recommend you do it if you haven't done so, and have a chat to your neighbour as well. The tool itself is really easy to do. It takes a minute or so of your time. It basically pinpoint a location on your farm. It's just a single point, and then basically save that and permission that sharing through that saving process. We then put that geolocation in the NLIS database and attach it to livestock tags that have been on your property. And then we allow the processors and exporters to grab those geolocations if they're going to send those animals into the EU. So it's really simple from your perspective as a producer. That's all you need to do. We don't share any other information, so we've tried to keep it minimal as possible to protect privacy. And that geolocation is one spot on your property. It's not a representation of the whole land plot. So if you do have multiple parcels of land or multiple properties under one pick, you can just pick the best spot on your property that you think represents your grazing area. But that's sharing geolocations. We have a how-to guide if you get stuck as well. And there's information on our website about it if you want to find out more about the EUDR as well. But that's sharing geolocation, and we can move now to animal welfare management plans. So this one is bright, shiny, new requirement into the LPA program as of the 23rd of June. It's a new requirement in the standards that requires a documented animal welfare management plan. And we know that might sound a bit overwhelming, which is why we developed a tool that sits alongside of it to help you complete it when you complete accreditation, and it really strengthens the transparency around the animal welfare assurance on farm in Australia. This was an industry-led initiative around improving that integrity in the animal welfare space, because we get compared to and rocks thrown at us quite frequently around animal welfare in the global trading space. So it really sets us apart from the rest of the world and gives us that market access and strengthens that transparency as well. We worked really hard with industry on making sure that the tool that we developed was fit for purpose, wasn't going to add too much time, but also did what it needed to do in terms of lifting that integrity piece. It has been available since for nearly 2 months now in the LPA in accounts available and as part of accreditation processes. And it will be checked at audits from the 1st of September as well. And you'll be given an opportunity, if you do have an audit, to complete that after the audit if you haven't done it by the audit. It's available, you can complete it at any time through your record keeping section of your LPA account, or if you haven't done that, by the next time you go to complete reaccreditation, it'll automatically just be part of the questions that you answer. In terms of the plan itself, we've based it off the animal welfare standards and guidelines. So as you work yourself through the questions, it'll actually present to you the standards as per the standards in these documents here to help you understand what the standard is. And then it'll ask you a question about how you're meeting that standard on farm. So it's really practical stuff that you probably do all day, every day around sort of responsibilities, how you ensure adequate feed and water, your risk management practices, how you maintain your facilities and equipment, handling and husbandry activities specific to your property and your livestock species, breeding management and humane euthanasia. The form and the tool of itself is actually dynamic, and it's tailored to you using some questions that we put up front of the tool. So if you only have cattle, you'll only get asked questions about the cattle standards. And then similarly, it'll ask you what husbandry practices you undertake. So you only have to answer questions about those husbandry practices. So I've tried to make it as succinct as possible for you and do lots of hard work in the background to make it as quick as possible as well. You can go in and update it at any time as well. So if you change something or you want to update it because you need to, you can do that at any time once it's created as well. And so it's inherently going to be part of accreditation, so everyone will have to do one. But if you do decide to jump in and do it, it won't take you too long, and it's pretty helpful, I think. Just a quick note, we do have some not so helpful media go out just around the time we launched this around working dogs. We just wanted to reiterate that there's no restrictions on the use of working dogs through the animal welfare requirements. The animal welfare standards for sheep mention the use of dogs, and all it mentions is that they have to be, used appropriately and to the minimum needed to complete the task. The animal welfare management plan doesn't really specify anything in relation to that. It just simply asks you if you use dogs appropriately, which is common sense, and that's just part of the process. So we just wanted to say that in terms of there's no restriction on that. So make sure you don't leave everything you read on Facebook. Now, in terms of our next big initiative is harvested rangeland goats. So you might be a harvested rangeland goat accredited. We have a lot of them in New South Wales. But if you're not, and it's of interest, keep an ear out. So a harvested rangeland goat is a goat that's captured from a wild state, so it's not one that you kind of breed and manage. It cannot be born on your property or born as a result of a managed breeding program, and it can't be subject to any husbandry practices or treatment. So it's really a wild goat that's roaming around in the environment around your property. This is an approval pathway that the goat industry spearheaded to keep a device-free pathway for these goats. once sheep and goat EID started from the 1st of January this year. So it was added to the LPA program as a module that producers who capture these goats could seek accreditation into, then continue to move those goats through the supply chain. You have to apply, and your application gets reviewed by New South Wales government. Once they approve that application, you actually have to pay another $90 before you can use the HRG National Vendor Declaration, so specific for these goats. If you buy the goat NVD, that's not what you need for a harvested rangeland goat. So just be really mindful of the emails that you get sent and reading them carefully. So making sure you're not buying the wrong NVD and obviously not complying with the requirements. This is all about moving those wild goats through the supply chain without an NLIS device. So it's a really a benefit to keeping that process going. There is a new HRG NVD. It is blue in colour if you buy the book. Oh, that's the definition there. Sorry, I don't know where I went. Sorry. Okay. Well, the definition of a harvested rangeland goat is up on the screen there for really quick. So they can only move from the point of capture, or where you capture them from, to a registered goat depot or an abattoir for slaughter. So they're really short timeframes from the point of capture to when they're moved through to processing. And that's because they don't have an eID device. So this process and pathway is really tightly controlled. If the goat no longer meets that definition, they have to be consigned on a regular goat NVD and have an NLIS eID popped in their ear as well. Goat depots are specific and they have lots of audit requirements over the top of them. So they actually have only 10 days to aggregate enough goats before they can send them to slaughter. Otherwise, they have to tag them as well. So it's a really tight process to make sure that we can continue to move these goats to where they need to go. This was the slide I wanted. So the NVD requirements around harvested rangeland goats, we've got two now. We've got a harvested rangeland goat for those device-free movements, which is that blue one you can kind of see behind there. And that's where a producer moves goats to a goat depot, or the goat depot is moving those device-free goats to the processor. All of the goats have to go on the regular goat NVD. If you're moving harvested rangeland goats to another property, anywhere else other than a registered goat depot or a processor, if they get treated, they're going basically anywhere else or something like that, they're no longer a harvested rangeland goat, and they're now going as a managed goat on that red NVD. If you have goats or have them, the last version of the goat NVD is now invalid from the 1st of July. So you need to make sure that you've got the right version to make sure you're compliant with the movement requirements for goats. If you do use the eNVD, you'll have the current version available to you at all times, and it is free to use, so you don't have to read by books if you switch to electronic. One last thing to note with harvested rangeland goats, because you have access to a device-free pathway as well, you also have to have an LPA audit once every 2 years as well to maintain that accreditation. So just one last thing to note about the goats. In terms of some minor updates, we did do a bit of a facelift for our dairy QA recognition program. So I don't know if there's any dairy farmers on the call tonight, but effectively we recognise dairy processor and dairy audits that happen with dairy farms. And if you link those two things together, so your LPA and your dairy QA, you get some benefits out of the program. The recognition itself hasn't changed. We've just simply given it a facelift and made it a bit easier to do in the database. And one last note, which is a little bit tricky to talk about, but we'll do it anyway, is there's been some media around LPA and renewable energy infrastructure. So we just wanted to put it out there that LPA does not prohibit or restrict infrastructure related to renewable energies on land where livestock are grazed. So there's no prohibition on it. There's no need to declare it on NVDs, and it won't stop you getting LPA accreditation. The requirement is just to consider it as part of your property risk assessment process. So especially as any infrastructure on your property degrades with age, it's important to keep an eye on them and consider them as you go through your property risk assessment process. So just wanted to put that out there so we are clear about the position in relation to LPA. but that's me. So I'm going to leave it over to John to talk around the eNVD web improvements. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Evening, guys. As Xander mentioned, I'm the digital product manager for ISC, and we look after the three main products that ISC give to you guys as part of the red meat industry. The purpose of my little segment tonight is just to highlight a couple of the improvements that we're putting into the eNVD web product. And one of them's gone in already, and we can showcase that for you. And then the next one is around pick search, which we're looking to release out to eNVD in the next couple of months. Just to kind of highlight, we do invest a lot of money into eNVD. We recognise it as a crucial part of the chain and moving towards that digital space. So we understand that the product has been around for a while, and there are several pain points with it. And what we are doing is looking at the feedback that's coming from the industry and trying to incorporate that into the product and continuously improve it. Two main areas around that. The first I'll showcase is the new feature where we're integrating with NLIS, giving you the ability as a receiver of a consignment through eNVD to do that compliance movement that you would normally do through NLIS, and giving you an easy way of doing it within eNVD. Recognising that both the movement document and the requirement in NLIS has similar touch points, we thought it would make sense to kind of combine those and integrate those a little bit easier, and giving you that kind of pathway to be able to only use one system to do your compliance obligations rather than having to log in and out of multiple systems. Second area that we're looking at is a kind of common pain point that comes up about being able to find the destination pick when you're doing your eNVD. We are a little bit restricted in terms of the data that we get from the states through the pick register, and recognise that does not make it easy for people to find the pick if they don't know that number. Understanding that everyone knows their own pick, but not necessarily the pick that they want to move the livestock to. So that's the other area too, and I'll showcase some of the areas that we're going to introduce to make that process a little bit easier. Next slide. So just on the integration bit, just to kind of highlight the key messages out of this and the benefits for both sides of people involved in the movement. At the moment, we're just doing property-to-property transfers. So if you are doing those property-to-property transfers, this is available to be able to be facilitated through eNVD. It's purely voluntary. We're not making people add the tags to the consignment. If you see benefit in it, or your receiver has asked you to do it, then it's a purely voluntary option that will go through. One of the main benefits we see is specifically around the receiver of the consignments is that you can just do the transfer with eNVD. You don't need to log into NLIS. So that kind of is a bit of a saving time hassle, and then having to log into another system, find your NLIS account and password and things like that. So to be able to do it in one system, we see as a good efficiency saver for those receivers. The other thing that we're looking, or we think is a good improvement, is being able to see warnings with specific tags that are loaded to the consignment. So we can highlight where those tags have read badly, or you've added a different species to the consignment, or if that tag that you're adding to the consignment is actually currently still on another pick. You have time to resolve those common pain points that people have when they try and do the movement with NLIS. The upside of that is it makes the pick reconciliations that you need to do a little bit easier, because you're confident that most of the movements that you've done have been done correctly, and that the lifetime traceability of those tags or those devices are not lost just because the movements haven't happened in the right sequence. From a sender's perspective, you get access to those same validations that I'll show, but also you're giving early visibility to the receiver of what you're adding to the consignment. So it's a benefit in both ways that we see. I think now I just need to do a demonstration. So just bear with me as I bring the system up. Okay, so you should be able to see. So here you're probably familiar with this is the web-based eNVD platform. And another thing to note is that this new feature is just available on the web. We're using this as a bit of a test to see how the feature is used in getting feedback from yourselves about whether it's intuitive and easy to use. And then we'll look at improvements and rolling it out across the platforms. Looking at opportunities to integrate with scan readers and introducing it to the mobile platform as well. As you can see, I've got a consignment here that's going out from my pick today. I have created this, and remembering that the easiest way to create these consignments is using a template. If you have a look, you can notice that there's a new column here around NLIS movements. So we give you these tooltips to guide you through the process. And you can see that it's available here to start. And as a sender, I can add the devices to the consignment. The receivers, once you submit it, we have 7 days to be able to do that movement and add tags to it. So to add the tags, we just go to the options menu here. We have an option here to add the devices. And you're presented with 2 options. So you can either upload a file or add them manually. So depending on how you record keep with your devices, we give you 2 options. You can manually cut and paste from a third-party system into here, or if you have a file that you've got out of a reader, we'll accept most of the reader outputs, and we just look at the RFID or the NLIS ID that's in that output and ignore the rest. So for the example of what we're doing tonight, I'll just choose a file because that's the most easy and straightforward way. You just select the file from your computer. It'll see it come loaded up here and then push it through. And here it's just going and checking those devices that I've added against NLIS. So here you can see it's playing back some information. So what does this mean? In this first error, we can see that this is a bad read, and we've picked it up that the ID that's been attached is not quite right in the right format. So we can call that out to you. Second example here is an example of a device that you've added, but it's not actually on your pick as a sender. So it may have been that you've forgotten to transfer that animal onto your farm prior to moving it off. So here's a bit of a checkpoint for you to do that necessary transfer, get that all lined up before you then on move that livestock. Third example here is just an example of if you have multi-species on your farm, you may have read something or it's part of another session on the reader and it's come into the consignment. So we can call out that you're actually adding a device that's from a different species to what you've indicated on the eNVD. So it's important to note that these warnings and errors, they're just for your information as a sender. You can leave that on the consignment and that will go on to the receiver for review, but we do recommend that you try and resolve all of these errors before you then push it on, because that makes the process a little bit more seamless. So if I kind of push forward to the other part of the consignment, if I move myself to the receiver, you can see that, sorry, I just pick the right profile here. You can see that here is me as the receiver of that consignment. I can see it as an incoming, and the little indicator here is telling me that the sender of this consignment has added the tags. And as a bit of visual kind of reference, you can see that the tags are ready, and it's a different kind of icon representation to say a consignment that hasn't had tags or isn't an outgoing for the same user. If I go and have a look, I can drill down and have a look at those tags. But there's a few things that we play back here to the user that are quite important to note. The first one is if you're interacting with eNVD using your LPA profile, which most people do, to be able to do the movement within eNVD, you need to have linked your NLIS ID to your profile and switch to that one to do the movement. That way we can guarantee that you are who you are within NLIS and you are authorized to do that movement. If you need some guidance around that, there's plenty of collateral that the comms teams has put together about how to link the accounts, and also anything to do with this processor as a source or a receiver. You will also note that we can still see the errors and the warnings, and we'll resolve those a little bit later, but you can't really edit anything here, and you can't move anything onto your pick yet because you're not in the right profile. So if I go back and switch myself to the right profile, you'll see how that changes with the access to the user. So here you can see it's indicated by your NLIS ID. You can see the same incoming consignment, and you have a different option here to complete the movement. So this is indicating to you that you have access to do it. You don't have the prompt to move your profile that's been removed. You still have the errors that are calling out to you, but in this case, we can actually do something about it. So if this is an invalid ID and you don't want it part of the consignment, you can delete that as a receiver. It'll just ask you to authorize that. And then we can also do the same. So if these are kind of legitimately not part and they've been removed from the consignment that you've received, you can then also delete these guys as well. So once I clean up the consignment so that we don't have any more errors, you can see we've got good news, no issues detected. The final step to actually represent the movement is to move it onto the pick. All you need to do that is just to move onto your pick, and then it's submitted. So that's all you need to do. At this moment, NLIS movement has been submitted. If I want to check the progress of that, I can have a look at this consignment again, go into the movement. You can see the movement is complete. And if you need some more details about that movement, you can see the serial number, the upload ID if you need to check in NLIS. And if you need to even go into NLIS, you can log in from there. Okay, so I think that's the end of the demonstration. Okay, so as I mentioned, the other pain point that we've been fed back is the ability to be able to find the pick. One thing that we do know is that there is a common a pattern within the app that's working well for people in being able to filter down some of the information from the pick search to get to the right destination. So what does that mean? Being able to pick the state that you're interacting with, the type of pick that you're interacting with, and then putting in further details will more often than not present you with the right correct result. So what we want to do is kind of apply that pattern across both the web and the app and make it a little bit easier and a bit more intuitive for the user to find that pick, because we know it's a big pain point. So what does that mean in terms of how it's going to look like? I'll just kind of demonstrate what we're proposing to do here and explain that in a little bit more detail. We've done a bit of testing and gone out to the market about, what do you guys see as being useful? What we came up with is changing the design a little bit slightly and giving users a couple of options to find their picks. The first option is using the destination before. We recognise that people interact with the same pick more often than not. So being able to display a list of recently used locations is quite handy. So that's what we're proposing to do across both platforms, is have a store of those recently used locations. If you can't remember the pick, you can just go in here. This is a prompt. It'll give you an indicator of the type of pick, the pick number, the name, so that you can clearly find what you're looking for. The other options that we have here is I know the pick number, so that's much like you got now. If you really know your picks and you know the number and you can bang it in, then that's fine. You still have that option. The final option that we're going to give to you is that you may not know the pick and you haven't used it before, but you know some kind of details about it. So with this option, we're kind of going back to that pattern of filter to get you to narrow down the result set, because we know that that works in most cases. And recognizing that every state that we interact with has a different set of information, we can't apply the same search rules across every state. So as an example, we can just pick New South Wales. If we know that there's some, I suppose, specific thing about a state in terms of the pick register, we can play back those differences to you so that you're aware. You can put in the town or suburb that you know that the pick resides in, and then pick the pick type. So in this case, we're interacting with the sale yard and Wagga. We use that one because it's commonly a hard one to find. After we go through that, we can see that we can pop up a sale yard and with the business name and the pick, and then you know that you got the right one there. So that's just a bit of a playback. We're developing that now, and that will go out live in the next couple of months, as I mentioned. Over to you, Natasha. I think you're doing the next one.
Just you guys in New South Wales must be rather quiet. We're not getting that many challenging questions. So if you've even seen a section earlier that you thought, heck, that doesn't quite make sense to me, or I have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat and make the most of that while we're on the call. So I will kick off now about talking about the NLIS Database Uplift Project. And why are we focusing on this? Well, our insights show us that actually only 75% of producers aren't aware that we're uplifting the current database and providing a new shiny one. So just wanting everyone to be aware that there is a new database coming. So we just wanted to let everyone know that. So I'll just run through all about the database now. So it's the year 2000. George was in his prime. We were all worrying about what would happen with Y2K, and the old Nokia 3310 was the most happening phone on the planet, and you could play Snake with it. That was when the NLIS was released. So that was when the team at MLAIC decided that this was a really great idea and to provide a sort of world first in global traceability of red meat. So why are we uplifting the database? We hear a lot of comments where people say, well, I've just got my head around the old one. Well, the reality is we want to continue to protect market access and food safety and make sure it's a key defence tool against any exotic diseases. It is getting pretty on. It's 25 years old now, and we're looking to future-proof livestock traceabilities for decades to come. It has improved user experience, so making it easier for producers, regulator, and industry. And we're wanting to modernise the core purpose and functionality through secure infrastructure. We all know that cybersecurity is becoming a big risk in all areas of life. So tracking towards 2026, we've had the support of the Australian government through a $22.5 million grant, and that is when we are looking to be able to release it. So what is it going to achieve? And we're hoping it will increase traceability due to improve usability. It's an easier to use system. We're hoping to, like most of you say, that compliance is a burden on farm and you just want to get out there and farm your animals. Well, we're hoping this will help you get the job done more quickly. It has improved ability to upload large files, so there's a lot more large data that's coming through. It has access to data quickly and more efficiently. It should be easier integration for the likes of AgriNouse and Outcross and organisations that run APIs on behalf of producers and sale yards. And as I've mentioned earlier, we'll be looking to keep data safe, secure and up to date. And it will also provide better reporting and analytics and an improved notification service. Where are we? A lot of people that aren't aware about this don't know that it's been a 3-year journey. So this project started back in July 2023, and now at March 2026, will be when we complete the build. So we're currently in the middle of the build phase and the stage transition phase as we put all the bits and pieces together to make the system work. As you can see from here, we're hoping the uplifted database will be fully operational by July 26th. I'm now going to hand over to our guru, John, to demonstrate what it's going to look like so you guys can get a real life view of what it will look like when it goes live.
Thanks, Natasha. Okay, so in my spare time, we've been working on doing an uplifted UX and UI for NLIS. So just to remind everyone kind of what the current system looks like. This is the system that, as Natasha said, was designed in 2000. Obviously, there's some opportunities here to make it a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit more up-to-date. So where we've gone to with this, and there's been multiple rounds of engagement with producers and everyone within the supply chain because it services many different users. And also investigating kind of how other big platforms are operating and designed out in the market. So what you can see here is the design that we're landing on, and I'll just quickly go through the landing page because this is supposed to be the point of entry for you guys to interact and getting most of the information. What we want to do, and as Natasha said, is reduce the time that you have to spend in NLIS to do your compliance. So we don't want you engaging with it and finding it hard to navigate around. You want to go in, do what you need to do, and get out again. So what we're planning on doing is presenting as much information as we can within this screen. So hopefully it answers most of your questions and provides you a good point of entry to do what you need to do, whether it be movements onto your property, off your property, reports, your pick recs, and things like that. So what we're going to do is play back all the information related to your pick, what the current status is, any programs that you're part of, the species that you interact with. Play all that back so that that the system is up to date and is relevant and accurate to your situation. Second part that we're playing back is providing an avenue for you to find out or articulate what you want to do with the system really easily. So the two ways that we're going to do that is one, providing a global search feature so that if you have some reference that you're interested in, whether it be an action, a particular transaction that someone's done or you've done, or a particular pick that you're interested in that you have access to, or a device ID, you can pop it in this search and we'll play back to you what all the potential matches are. An example of that is being able to search by, say, a transaction ID. So you've done a transaction a couple of months ago and you want to just replay that and make sure it was correct. So you can select transaction ID, pop an ID in there, search, it'll come back and play. So it's found one match. It gives you a bit more information about that, when it was done, what type of transaction, who did it, etc. If you need to dig down a little bit deeper into that and see what that transaction was, we can then play that back as well and give you a bit of a representation of it. Okay, it was a movement off your property, it was cattle, it went from this pick to that. Here was the number. If there was an eNVD attached to it, we can play that back too, and give you even the device details that were related to that if they were added to the transaction. So we want to make it fairly easy to find that information so that you don't then have to run a report, look at that output, wait for it to be emailed to you, things like that, which slows down the process in the current system. The other big thing that we want people to interact with is these big buttons around the quick actions. So you can customize this to be able to represent the 4 most common things that you would do with NLIS. So in this example, we're doing livestock movement. Devices on pick is a representation of your current holdings, reports, and your pick reconciliation. The other thing that we're adjusting to is making the terminology more meaningful and consistent across the platform. So you'll see new terms like we're not looking at transfers anymore. We're combining everything that is a movement together in one spot. Devices, we're taking that tag reference out because we recognize that as the industry moves forward. Tags are currently the way of indicating it, but it's not the only way of identifying individual animals. Livestock inquiry is another example. At the moment, it's called beast inquiry, but that's not relevant to other species that we look after in the system. So these quick actions can be customized. So you can, if you don't interact with those 4 things, you can go and pick from the list of actions that you're available to your user type and pick and choose what you need to do there. The other big things just want to call out quickly on the landing page is we can summarize the latest movements so that you can reconcile that with the movements that you know have happened on or off your property to make sure that people are representing them correctly, or in the case of if you're sending them off your property, that the receiver is doing the necessary movement. ID notifications or eNVDs that are related to your pick, we can call them out, and we're proposing to do that in the landing page. And then on the right, this devices on pick is kind of like a graphical representation of the number of devices you have registered to your pick. And if you can see that that line's going up when you know it's going down, that's again another call to action to say, hey, there may be something that's not being represented correctly. So to go and investigate that if you need to. I think that's pretty much it, Natasha. So I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, John. John mentioned about the consultation and the engagement that we have been, that has taken part of the project. So there's been over 3 rounds of usability testing. Now that's testing that's around those designs that John's talked about and giving the opportunity for a number of producers to give us feedback on what they are wanting to see. There's also been over 20 industry events, including the ECA and the Sydney show and those sorts of areas where we've actually taken the system to people and given them the opportunity to provide us feedback on what they think. There's quite a high level of governance over the project. So there's 3 layers of the reference group, which is represented by industry, states and territories, and then some technical advisory bods that are very good at helping us, supporting us on that technical area. And then sitting above that is also a designated governance, head of governance, which is called the NUG group. So there's been over 135 plus hours of engagement with industry reference groups alone since March 2024. So it's pretty impressive the amount of engagement that's been going on. So what does this mean for you as a producer? The new look NLIS database is designed to be simpler, easier to use, but we recognise this will be a big change for some people. So a detailed training plan is being developed and more details will be shared as soon as it's available. We plan to assist producers and industry with how-to guides, training webinars, hands-on demonstrations and examples, and regular updates and opportunities to ask questions. And you'll be supported by our contact centre that are open between 7 and 7 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays, plus our chatbot service, which is available 24/7 if you've got any questions. So we'll be putting the support around you to make you successful working with the new database. Okay, I shall now hand over to Kerry, I think.
Thank you. This looks like me. So I am just going to give everyone a little bit of update on sheep and goat electronic identification implementation. It's a lot of words in New South Wales. So I'm Kerry, brought on the project manager for sheep and goat traceability or sheep and goat eID implementation in New South Wales. So I guess we'll start at the start. We sort of all know about the traceability of eID, but there's 4 main things that we need to ensure this traceability. So the PIC code, the NLIS device, the National Vendor Declaration or the movement record, and the NLIS database. So ensuring that we can capture these in there as well. So I'll just jump straight to the eID implementation timeline. This is the New South Wales timeline. Obviously, it does vary in some other states, but in the last year on the 30th of June or 1st of July, processors began scanning any eID devices that came through on stock through their plant and uploading these to the NLIS database. From the 1st of January this year, sow yards started doing the same. So sow yards and depots, so goat depots, are now scanning and uploading any eID devices that come through their facilities. At the same time for producers, so anything born from the 1st of January this year requires an eID device before that animal leaves the property of birth. So that's, I'll get into the tags later, but yeah, anything born from the 1st of January this year onwards now needs an eID device instead of a visual tag. From this year, from the 1st of January this year as well, for the property transfers for anything with an eID device, those transfers need to be done individually in the database. So mob-based movements still occur for animals with visual tags and the whole consignment, but anything with an electronic identification device needs that eID to be moved individually in the database as well. So luckily, John showed us that can be done a little bit more simply now with eNVD, which is fantastic. And then, so the final step in implementation, so we've done a staged implementation, obviously, to give us time for everyone to move through the system, get systems ready, up and running, make sure that there's no technical issues in sow yards, processes, etc. So the final key date is the 1st of January 2027, when it's mandatory for all sheep and goats, regardless of their age, to have an eID device attached prior to leaving any property they're on or making any movement. So that'll be the final date. So as an owner of sheep and goats, you need to ensure that sheep and goats have an eID device before they leave your property, according to the implementation timeframes. If your sheep and goats never leave your property, they don't need an eID device. We don't have a requirement in New South Wales that animals be tagged and that sheep or goats be tagged until they leave the property. If you move sheep or goats onto your property, ensure you correctly report the movement onto your property within 2 days to the NLIS database. And if you move sheep or goats off your property, ensure they are accompanied by a movement document. So that's either in NVD for those people that are LPA accredited and have access to those, or a transported stock statement. So EID device requirements, and as mentioned before, we call them a device, basically because most of them would be ear tags, but there are some hock straps, so leg bands for goats that are approved for that species. So that's why we can't call everything a tag. There's other things out there that people might be using. So if you see the word EID device, that just basically means the same thing, but there's other things other than tags. So sheep or goats must only be identified with one NLIS eID device only, or one eID device. Do not apply a second NLIS eID device. So unlike visual tags where you can tag multiple times and put your own, that doesn't apply to electronic devices. There's only one eID at a time. Do not remove an NLIS eID device unless it's non-functioning, so it's not reading. Then you can remove it and replace it. So if it's lost or non-reading, it must be replaced with an NLIS breeder or post-breeder EID device. So again, if you can't be sure that they're born on your property, then you need to use a post-breeder device. They still come in the EIDs. NLIS EID tags must be used only on the species registered on the NLIS database. So don't use cattle tags in sheep or goats, or sheep tags in goats, etc. And you will see those errors come up if that's what's happened, which is also fantastic on the new database and in the movements. And NLIS EID devices can be attached to either left or right ear in sheep and goats. So it's not specific that it has to be in either ear, up to you with your preference. So just a big one, species-specific tags. Have you got the right tag? So there are, I will show you in a second, there are species-specific codes. So make sure when you're ordering tags that you specify if you need them for sheep or if you need them for goats. And then don't mix the bags up when you get home. If you do have multiple species on your property, they are coded in the database to a particular species. So if I'd hate it if there was some kind of issue later and you had 1,000 sheep tags in goats and they decided that you need to be quarantined because you had sheep when you didn't need to. So yeah, make sure you use the right tag on the right species. So how to order accredited NLIS EID devices. So they must be NLIS accredited. These can be ordered through obviously a rural merchandiser, tag manufacturer, online, in person. We recommend that you place your order at least 14 days before you need them, but check with the manufacturers and retailers about lead times. They may be longer than that. So ensure you have your PIC details with you. Choose an approved device, so NLIS approved device to best suit your climate and environment. So there's multiple tag brands and types out there. And all the approved devices have that NLIS logo on them. So hot tip, the Temu devices probably don't have the proper NLIS logo on them, so please don't order them from Temu. Select the correct species code for identifying your stock. So make sure you tell the manufacturer or your retailer what your species are. So you'll see there's different codes related to the species for sheep and goat, and there's also ones for cattle and alpaca. And then select the color for your NLIS approved device. And I'll get into that in a second. So EID device considerations, just some things to think about. Are they NLIS compliant? Are they NLIS approved and accredited? What's the best type of tag for your operation? You know, which one may work best? It could be that round tag, it could be a wraparound tag. The device itself and the pin size and what livestock you've got. Do you need breeder or post-breeder tags? And do you want to use a single applicator or an automatic applicator? So year of birth device colours, and I see we just had a question there. We strongly recommend the use of the year of birth colour system in New South Wales, but it's not compulsory. The only compulsory colour is that all post-breeder EID devices must be pink. So if the animals were not vendor bred and you need to replace a tag, you must use a post-breeder tag and they must be pink. Those are the colours there. So we're currently in white. But yeah, we don't mandate it, but strongly recommended. So yeah, just again, application of devices. We often hear about retention issues, and often retention issues can be due to poor placement in the ear. And it can, so incorrect application can also damage the devices. So make sure that you're using the right applicator with your devices, and don't try and sometimes use the cattle one for sheep. They're not necessarily the same. Yeah, and allow room for the ear to grow, disinfect the applicator jaws. But yeah, it really does help with retention of those tags if they're applied properly. So the New South Wales Sheep and Goat EID tag discount program, also a lot of words. I hope you've heard about it. But we have a program running where 2025 NLIS accredited white EID devices receive a 76 cent discount per tag. So that's including GST. And that's running currently until the 31st of December. It's just been extended for a couple of months. So 31st of December, unless funds are exhausted early. This stage, we hope they'll keep going out to that. But yeah, so 31st of December 25, and it's applied at the point of sale. So you don't need to apply for a rebate. You do need pre-approval if you need to order more than 3,500 devices. It's a short form. We just then do some checks in the background and provide you that approval that the manufacturer needs to actually process an order of more than 3,500 devices. But under that, you can go straight to your manufacturer, online retailer, in-person retailer, and just buy the tags you need for this year's lambs, and they will apply the discount for you. So it's applicable on one order under 3,500 devices. So just try and make sure that you bundle your tag purchases together in one, so that you're not doing it over multiple times and you can claim that discount. So just a quick wrap up on the changes for EID, but what changes do you make for sheep and goats? Basically, you're switching from visual tags to EID devices, and that's according to those dates. There's no changes to requirements for PICs, and there's no changes to requirements for the NVD, except as Elizabeth shared, that there's new goat NVDs out. But in terms of needing an NVD, there's no changes there. For harvested rangeland goats, you can do a tag-free movement with the HRG LPA accreditation, with an HRG accredited PIC, and using the HRG NVD. So for more information, obviously, go online via the ISC website. or contact Integrity Systems Company and they can also assist. So just a quick one on the transfer requirements. When you order the eID devices, the manufacturer will link them to your PIC code in the NLIS database, so they'll be preloaded on there as soon as you order them. And who's responsible? We get this question a lot for the NLIS transfer. So the sale yard is responsible for the transfer if you're moving them through a sale. They will do that for you. A processor will do the same. If you sell to a processor, they will do that movement and decease those tags for you. But otherwise, it is the receiver or the purchaser's responsibility to make that NLIS transfer. So this is private sales. If you're doing movements between properties with different PICs, so a property to property movement. And this is the same. It's really important to know that online livestock auction platforms, so Auctions Plus, Farmgate, etc., Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, they do not do the movement for you. You will need to make that movement yourself in the database. So what information will you need to make a transfer? Obviously, you'll need the NLIS ID, which is printed on the eID device, or the microchip number that you can read with a wand or hand or a scanner. So either of those can be used to make the movement. The details of the PICs you're transferring between, the date the stock movement occurred, obviously, and the movement document number, so the NVD number or the TSS, and obviously John again showed how to do some of that. And important, you must update the NLIS database within 48 hours of that livestock movement occurring. So again, fantastic change in the eNVD. That will be a lot easier to have them uploaded, which is great. So just a quick one. I won't go over the HRG requirements again because Elizabeth went over them, but just from the perspective of the New South Wales DPIRD assisting people, just some comments around harvested rangeland goats and ensuring that you match the PIC in your application. So to apply for the HRG LPA accreditation, the property where you harvest the rangeland goats must have a valid PIC. They must be LPA accredited. And if you're harvesting from any address, including a national park, that one also needs a PIC LPA accreditation and the HRG module accreditation. So providing the correct PIC address ensures that it can be progressed more timely. So knowing your PIC address is really important when you do this, and ensure that it's LPA accredited and you've got the HRG accreditation. So application timeframes for HRG, it can vary, but it's essentially the quickest way for it to progress is that the applicant is the PIC manager, that you've confirmed the PIC manager and provided their permission if it's not you, and the declaration is returned within 24 hours. Essentially, the applications are usually delayed due to missing documentation and unconfirmed PIC manager details or any delays in returning the required forms. But if you need help with HRG applications or have any questions if it's been delayed or there's any questions back to you, you can contact these teams for support. So just leave them up there, but yeah, they'll be able to support you. And especially if you need to change details on the PIC, please ensure you reach out to local land services for that. So you can find more information on sheep and goat eID implementation in New South Wales on our website. The tag discount program information is there as well as the pre-approval form if you do need to order over 3,500 tags under the tag discount program. And you can always contact us via email. And that's pretty much us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Kerry. And that just about brings us to a close for tonight's webinar. Thanks, Kerry, for presenting, and thanks for everyone for giving us your time tonight to run through some of these integrity systems updates. Before we clear out, I'll just run through these top 3 integrity takeaways for the night. Number 1, get on top of your animal welfare management plan when you get the chance. And for those EU producers, remember to jump in and share your geolocation when you get the chance. Number 2, jump in and give eNVD a try. It's constantly being made better. And with some of those new improvements to the pick search function, it's worthwhile giving it a crack. And number 3, keep an eye out for the uplifted NLIS database as it comes through over the next 12 months. There is some really exciting work getting done there. So yeah, keep an eye out for that and get into it when it gets here. But that is about us for the evening. Thanks again for taking your time out of your evening. There'll be a post-webinar survey that'll come through afterwards. We'd love it if you could jump in and fill that out when you get the chance. Give us some feedback on how we did tonight. If we can make any improvements, that'd be great. And remember to keep an eye out for the recording and post-webinar pack that we'll send out along with all of the questions that you guys have asked and associated answers in the coming days. But that's about it. Thanks, everyone.